Whether you're planning to pick up individually or as a pack or with ESO Plus, we've gone through each of the Elder Scrolls Online downloadable content to review what they're about. Hopefully this gives you a better idea on which ones you should try next and answer the question, is ESO Plus worth it? Over the years, Elder Scrolls Online has been expanding its universe through chapters and downloadable content. In this review, we will cover every DLC currently available for Elder Scrolls Online, as well as chapters that have become DLCs. This includes the most recent Elsweyr, which will be a DLC after the release of Greymoor this May. Is ESO Plus worth it? While each downloadable content is purchasable separately on its own in the Crown Store as well as in bundles, you can gain access to each DLC with an ESO Plus subscription, as long as the sub is active. Content access is just one of the many ESO Plus benefits, plus it's a pretty major one. If you'd like to figure out if the DLCs are worth subscribing for, watch on to find out what each has to offer, including sets, skill lines, questing, and crafting materials. Imperial City DLC Review. The Imperial City was introduced to the Elder Scrolls Online in 2015 and brought along with it a new zone of the same name in Cyrodiil, and now has its own PvP campaign. Explore the Imperial City and the Imperial Sewers. This DLC also added 2 dungeons called White Gold Tower and the Imperial City Prison. While a smaller PvP zone compared to the size of the open world of Cyrodiil campaigns, the Imperial City offers its own unique PvP experience as players will battle it out for a new currency called Telvar Stones. With great risk comes great rewards is the motto of this DLC. Kill the Daedra and gain Telvar's currency depending on how many you are holding, but lose the fight and lose your stones. There are also quests to complete which can provide a challenging experience with enemy players and Daedra on your tail. After gathering enough Telvar stones, you'll be able to access treasure vaults which can contain some rarer jewelry sets. You can also exchange them for Imperial City sets using a vendor. The DLC has tons of replayability with plenty of PvP action for those who want to put fighting skills to the test. Considerably smaller than Cyrodiil, it still provides just as much of a challenge as you venture through the sewers and to tackle the bosses roaming the city as well as enemy players. If you enjoy a different kind of PvP experience, you'll probably enjoy the Imperial City and gain some good armor sets in the process. We give this DLC 7 out of 10. This is a PvP and dungeon DLC with some good sets, not essential for the average player, and just a dungeon DLC for PvE players. Orsinium. If you're looking for a snowy region to explore, then the Orsinium DLC will be right up your alley. It introduces the region of Hrothgar with over 20 hours of story content and quests. It explores the culture of the Tamriel's orcs and a nuanced political intrigue story sprawling across one of the largest DLC zones added to the game. Help to rebuild the city of Orsinium while uncovering plots and facing the factions who will try to stop you. This DLC comes with quests, group bosses, delves, public dungeons, Old Orsinium and Rekindleft, new items, and the PvE challenge to test your mettle, Maelstrom Arena. Take on Maelstrom in normal or veteran and gain special rewards by completing the arenas, including a new title to show off. Gain a number of sets from the DLC, which include Overland Arena and craftable sets. You can also help to return the 16 relics to Hrothgar to the House of Orsimer, Glory's Museum. These are scattered around Tamriel, but you'll have some clues to how to obtain them. Completing the collection first will grant you an achievement in doing so. We give this DLC 10 out of 10. Orsinium is an excellent DLC for casual and hardcore players, offering a large zone full of quests and challenging world bosses. It adds several useful sets and the challenging Maelstrom Arena. Thieves Guild. Adding a whole treasure trove of thieving, the Thieves Guild introduces the area of Hugh's Bane. Players can pick up daily quests called Hist, which will test your skills in sneaking and picking up treasures unseen. It also brings its own unique passive skill line unlocked by joining the Thieves Guild, enhancing your pilfering needs. While the skill line is unique to the area of Hugh's Bane, your pickpocketing skills can be used almost anywhere. With this DLC, you'll be given access to Hugh's Bane in Hammerfell. This will introduce you to Abbott's Landing, home to a safe haven for thieves, the Thieves Guild, and a place to unload your ill-gotten goods. Complete daily challenges by picking them up from the tipboard and be rewarded, which includes counterfeit pardon edicts that help wipe out those bounties, as well as gain you some treasures. This is by far one of the most fun DLCs, as you not only gain thieving skills which gain you some rewards, but you can also become the ultimate thief. Just don't get caught, as there'll be a bounty to pay. This DLC could easily take you 10 hours to complete, but there are repeatable daily quests and rewards to keep you entertained, as well as a challenging 12-player trial, the Maw of Lockhart. You can either pick up this DLC separately or as part of the Guilds and Glory DLC pack from the Crown Store, or you can gain access to the Thieves Guild and all other DLCs with an ESO Plus subscription. We give this DLC a score of 9 out of 10. The Thieves Guild is set in a smaller zone, adding mainly thieving solo activities and skills. The story is entertaining but not enthralling. However, the DLC is elevated by letting you enjoy your new pickpocketing abilities across the world of Tamriel. The new trial and the new crafted sets make this a desirable DLC for many players. Dark Brotherhood. Are you ready to join the secret assassins guild of the Dark Brotherhood? This DLC invites you to become the ultimate assassin. If you like the sound of sneaking up on unsuspecting victims and quietly yet quickly taking them out in one blow, then this might be the DLC for you. Only with the Dark Brotherhood DLC will you master the skills needed to mercilessly kill your target with the Blade of Woe. While this skill is unique to the DLC, you can use it in most places and take whatever treasures the victims may have on them. There are also a number of other passive skills on the Dark Brotherhood skill line that make your life much easier, particularly Shadow Rider, which reduces detection from monsters when you're mounted by a whopping 50%. You can also take part in daily quests called Sacraments. These offer targets you need to kill in a few places without being seen or heard to gain some extra rewards. If you like the challenge of sneaking around, you'll enjoy the Dark Brotherhood. This DLC will probably take you around 10 hours, but of course, with daily sacraments and plenty of innocent NPCs to murder, you can definitely get your money's worth from this one, and get some exclusive rewards by completing the Litany of Blood. We give this one 9 out of 10. The Dark Brotherhood is set in a smaller zone that adds mainly murderous solo activities and skills. The story and zone are entertaining, and the DLC is elevated by letting you enjoy your new assassin's abilities across the world of Tamriel. The new crafted sets aren't amazing and there are no trials or dungeons, but the experience will be worth it for many players. Shadows of the Hist is a dungeon-focused DLC that adds the challenging encounters in Cradles of Shadows and Ruins of Mazatern. Both located in Shadowfen, players will learn about the rogue assassins now threatening the Black Marsh and the Agornians that are being enslaved. Cradle of Shadows adds an interesting mechanic where if you try to fight in the shadows you will take damage, but sticking to the pools of light provided by fiery lanterns will stop you from taking damage. ESO has some of the most interesting action combat mechanics that keeps you moving or reduces the safe areas in which you can stand, and Cradle of Shadows adds that element of movement. Ruins of Mazatern also comes with the DLC, pitting you against some angry looking beasts. Bosses include Zatsu, the Mighty Chudan, Zalnir, Treeminder, and Kanesh. Each of these dungeons comes with their own sets that they drop. As dungeons go, both have some mechanics you will need to learn, but adds to the enjoyment of tackling each. This DLC gets a score 8 out of 10. Shadows of the Hist is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons and whether you want unique sets that drop from it. In this case, Valadreth, it was one of the most popular PvP sets for a long time, and Gossamer becoming a healer favourite, so the DLC is well worth the purchase. Probably a chapter that will provide a lot of nostalgia for most Elder Scrolls fans, well until the release of more Dark Heart of Skyrim content, which includes the Greymoor chapter. Morrowind takes players to Vardenfell. This huge zone has more than 30 hours of main storyline to experience. If you pick up the Elder Scrolls base game, it will come with Morrowind and your character journey will start here. This chapter takes place 700 years before the events of the Elder Scrolls 3, so while it might have some familiar settings, it shows the area in a different time. Explore Vivec City, which is under construction during this time. It's great to see places from the Elder Scrolls series but set in a different era, and ESO has plenty of lore to offer. Morrowind also introduces a new class, the Warden, allowing players to harness the power of nature to wield some powerful magic. Call upon the Guardian Bear to fight at your side, swarms or even a Netch for a bit of a boost. This class will appeal to those who like a hunter or druid kind of class using nature to assist you in battle. Lastly, the Morrowind expansion added a new trial, the Halls of Fabrication, and a new PvP mode, Battlegrounds. This makes the Morrowind DLC the largest single edition in terms of content variety, as it provided for PvE, casual PvE, and hardcore PvE players. We give it a 10 out of 10. Morrowind stirs the nostalgia and takes players on a fun questing adventure, while also adding styles, achievements, collectibles, and activities for the casual players. Hardcore players will enjoy the trial, and PvP players can jump into Battlegrounds, which are now part of the base game for everyone. Horns of the Reach. Horns of the Reach adds 2 dungeons, Bloodroot Forge and Falkreath Hold. Bloodroot Forge invites players to the rocky steppes of Craglorn. Something is now stirring again as the Dreadhorn clan have stoked the fires, awakening something deep within. Encounter massive beasts, Hargravens, Minotaurs, and more deadly inhabitants. Pay attention to the environment as there will be some temporary platforms. Falkreath Hold, also a dungeon where the environment will be a factor. Players will venture into town that is under siege. Falkreath is under attack from the Dreadhorn clan. This dungeon takes inspiration in terms of environment from the Elder Scrolls V, with tall mountains and Shriekwind Bastion. Here players will take on the Minotaur chieftain himself, Domihaus, the Bloody Horned. Watch the ground as you may find fiery pits open beneath you, while trying to defend yourself from the beastly Minotaur. This DLC gains an 8 out of 10. Horns of the Reach is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons or whether you want the unique sets they drop. In this case, Earthgore is one of the most popular PvP sets, so the DLC is well worth the purchase. Clockwork City. Adding a new zone to explore, Clockwork City has plenty of quests to offer. Take a journey to Sophisil's Clockwork City and find out what new Daedric threat is afoot. This zone is not as large as Orsinium, but offers quite the unique experience in its sort of steampunk design. The Clockwork City also adds the Asylum Sanctorum trial, where a group of 12 players will need to defeat the Clockwork Saints. There are also plenty of armor sets, character customization items, and crafting motifs to discover. For collectors, you gain a special training dummy called the Precursor from the area by completing the achievement. There are also public dungeons, crafting stations, and elite spawns. Clockwork City is one of the most unique looking areas in ESO, and it definitely has a lot of intrigue, especially in its main story content. If you like the idea of adventuring through an unforgettable mechanical city, this DLC is for you. We give this DLC a 9 out of 10. The Clockwork City is a unique experience in ESO and one of the best DLCs added in terms of storytelling. This DLC adds a challenging trial with unique rewards, but the regular sets are underwhelming. This DLC is well worth it for players who enjoy a challenge or enjoy the Sophisil side of the Elder Scrolls lore. Dragonbones. The Dragonbones DLC adds 2 dungeons, Fanglair and Scalecaller Peak. In Fanglair, players will venture to the depths of ancient Dwarven Ruin, where necromancy is at work. Your job is to stop these necromancers from performing a ritual that will attempt to reanimate the bones of a once living dragon. Face bone colossi that will charge at you with its attacks, in which you must dodge. Scalecaller Peak is the burial site for the long-dead dragon priest, but is now home to a bunch of deceased cultists who want to unleash a deadly plague upon Tamriel. Here you and your team will try to avoid floating red spheres, freezing waters, and poison. This is another dungeon that adds some fun-filled mechanics, including listening to cues to kill enemies in a particular order. If you like a dungeon with dark creatures to fight with plenty of mechanics to keep you on your toes, this is the DLC for you. Just make sure to prepare well, as the veteran modes are still regarded as some of the hardest fights in the game. This DLC gets an 8 out of 10. Dragonbones is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons and whether you want unique sets they drop. In this case, Zan is one of the most popular PvP sets, so the DLC is well worth the purchase. Summerset. Summerset was released as a chapter, but as new expansions get released, the chapter gets added as a DLC. Summerset adds a new zone to explore new main quest lines involving high elves known as Altmer and the Psijic Order. Players will have the opportunity to unlock the Psijic Order skill line after visiting Artaeum, as well as unlocking jewelry crafting. Take on bosses, public dungeons, the new Cloud Rest trial, and the group challenge called the Abyssal Geysers. This is similar to Dark Anchor Dolmens but yields unique rewards. Summerset is by far one of the most beautiful zones to behold, from the towering city of the High Elves to the stunning natural regions. If you want to feast your eyes on one of the most visually pleasing areas, you cannot go wrong with Summerset, or with the dreamlike Artaeum. You can also find new item sets, outfit, and housing rewards. The new crafting skill line, Jewelry Crafting, will allow you to dismantle jewelry you find out in the world, research their traits, and even craft your own, which works similarly to other crafting skill lines but unlocks crafted set bonuses for your jewelry slots. This scores a 10 out of 10. Summerset and Artaeum are the most beautiful zones in the Elder Scrolls Online, and the storylines are engaging and entertaining. The new trial adds challenge for hardcore players and new crafting materials, motifs, and group events for more casual players. The new sets are not mind-blowing, but this is offset by the addition of jewelry crafting and its effect on builds in general, as well as the new skill line that is well used in PvP. Wolfhunter. As the name implies, this dungeon pack focuses on the werewolf kind, adding 2 dungeons, Moonhunter Keep and March of Sacrifices. Entering both dungeons will also net you a snazzy fedora. Moonhunter Keep is located in Reaper's March, a keep previously run by a group of werewolf hunters called the Order of the Silver Dawn. The keep is now swarmed with creatures that the Silver Dawn were trying to rid. Players will need to enter the lair to defeat the Moonhunter pack and take it back. The Wolfhunter dungeon will also reward players with a werewolf skin, even if your character hasn't been bitten by a werewolf. The Dungeon March of Sacrifices is set in the Daedric plane of Hersine. This dungeon will take you to the Daedric Prince's realm for the Great Hunt, which involves finding the chosen target known as the Hare, using your tracking skills. The creature that you will hunt will depend on the type of hunt, which means there will be different hares to track down. Only those who obtain the heart of the creature will receive a boon from Hersine. This one scores an 8 out of 10. Wolfhunter is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons and whether you want the unique sets they drop. In this case, the sets vary on usefulness by build, so the main attraction is the fun mechanics of the dungeon themselves. Murkmire. Murkmire will take players to Black Marsh, where players will encounter Concordia Mercius, who will need your help in recovering the Cylindric Collection's most precious relics stolen from the Orgonians. Situated in the southern coast of Black Marsh, discover a myriad of swamps, jungles, stilt houses, mysterious temples, and dilapidated ruins. Not only will you have a chance to discover the swampy location, but a main questline centered around the Orgonians. Along your perilous journey, you will meet the enigmatic Orgonians, who are searching to regain the legendary Saxil antiquity, discover a whole new culture with quirky characters to get to know. The area also comes with a group arena called Black Rose Prison, where players will face waves of enemies. Enter if you dare, with up to 4 players to climb your way up the arena board through 5 stages that will test your skill. Surviving the area will grant you new weapons such as Black Rose Great Sword with uppercut ability boosts and new item set. This DLC gets a 9 out of 10. Murkmire is a small zone, but is a very well designed one, with plenty of activities and an interesting and lore-rich story. The new group arena is a fun addition for group players, but not as hard as a trial, and the new sets are not the star of the show. The setting and story are the main draw of this DLC. Wrathstone. Wrathstone was the first DLC to be released following the Season of the Dragon. The DLC contains 2 dungeons, Frostvault and Depths of Malatar. In Frostvault, players will follow treasure hunter Tharia into the ancient Greymoor area to uncover the vault of Muvnek, frozen shut eons ago. Now open to explorers, the place is well guarded by goblin tribes and Dwemer automatons. Frostvault is a really fun dungeon to experience, and it includes its own minigame of Clockwork Skeevertons, where players will shrink down to the mouse-sized wind-up toys, try to avoid traps and deactivate a shock conveyor. There is also a crazy boss fight against the Stonekeeper, who, if you're not too careful, will knock you off the platforms with its swinging robot-like arms. You'll need to avoid the rolling balls of death in the process as well. This is a really fun dungeon to run, a bit of a mess on the first try, but once you know what you're doing, it will be a favourite. Depths of Malatar, on the other hand, will pit players against a different kind of enemy, from the scavenging maw to dark orbs. Malatar adds a number of mechanics including AoE circles, empowered Aurorans, and a boss that likes to clone himself. There are a number of sets to gain from these dungeons while taking on some challenges. This one gains an 8 out of 10. Wrathstone is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons and whether you want the unique sets they drop. In this case, the sets vary on usefulness by build, so the main attraction is the fun of the mechanics of the dungeons themselves. Elsweyr. You might be wondering, hang on a minute, why is Elsweyr on this list, since at the moment it's a chapter, not a DLC? Well, when the next chapter Greymoor releases, this will make Elsweyr eventually a part of the DLC collection in future. Elsweyr is part of the Season of the Dragon, a year-long theme that added dragons to Tamriel, awoken by Abnathan's doing, as well as Queen Euraxia. The dragon Cal Grunted brings a new threat to the home of the Khajiit. A new zone is available for ESO players to explore and run into these winged creatures in dragon hunts. A new world quest. It also adds a 12-player trial, Sunspire, and the newest class addition, the Necromancer. Necromancer is definitely a fun class to play as it draws its power from the dead. The use of Gravelord skills will imbue the dead from frost, fire or lightning, raise hordes of the undead to attack your enemies. Bone Tyrant skills will bend and break the dead to your will, creating an impenetrable wall and increase your own survivability. Living Death skills draws power of life and death, helps to restore your allies, and resurrect your fallen comrades to bring them back to battle. If you've always been curious about the Khajiit race, you can learn about their ways, their culture, and their history, as well as help them defend their land against the merciless attack of the dragon. This one gets a 9 out of 10. Elsweyr is a great expansion with a unique flavour thanks to the Khajiit overtones. With an interesting story and the addition of dragons, lore seekers will be more than satisfied. PvP players will enjoy the incredibly powerful Necromancer, and hardcore players the Sunspire Trial. Elsweyr has something for everyone and ranks accordingly. Scalebreaker. Scalebreaker introduces the dungeon's Lair of Marzluck and Moongrave Fane. The Marzluck dungeon adds the fun aspect of facing a dragon. If that's not motivation enough, I don't know what is. As you enter its lair, you awaken the dragon's influence and it reveals its corrupting effects. From giant spiders to hives that spawn a number of deadly creatures. Whether it's the Azure Blight that will get you or the ferocious dragon, that's the challenge and the enjoyable aspect of this dungeon. Out of the two, Moongrave Fane is one of the most fun dungeons to take on. Tackle the vampires of the Hollow Fang clan before they drain the life out of the captured dragon. This dungeon has some mechanics which involves bursting blood balls to moving blocks to either unlock areas or move them to release a fiery onslaught on the final boss, Grundwolf. Having to fight dragons in any capacity will hold some nostalgia for those who enjoyed games like Skyrim, and having dragons in ESO, especially in a dungeon, just adds to the experience. Each dungeon also rewards players with sets. This DLC gets an 8 out of 10. Scalebreaker is a dungeon-only DLC, therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons, and whether you want the unique sets they drop. In this case, the sets vary on usefulness by build, so the main attraction is the fun mechanics of the dungeons themselves, or if you're up for facing dragons. Dragonhold. The Dragonhold DLC brings a new explorable area for players to discover southern Elsweyr, deep within Khajiit lore, with plenty of feat to encounter. The area also has dragon hunts which were introduced with the Elsweyr expansion. This DLC is a similar size to Murkmire and Clockwork City in terms of area. The region is overrun by outlaws, both bandits and slavers are abundant in Palatine. This new region also comes with new delves, crafting stations, gear, side quests, and a brand new adventure to take on. The dragon hunts also have storm and frost dragons to fight alongside your fellow adventurers. There is also quests and side quests to enjoy. If you enjoyed discovering Elsweyr, this DLC will add to the experience and ends the season of the dragon. Getting an 8 out of 10, Dragonhold has a unique and enjoyable aesthetic and continues the story for the Elsweyr expansion, satisfying casual players. Hardcore players may find this DLC lacking, but some interesting crafted sets offset it. Harrowstorm. Harrowstorm adds 2 dungeons, Icereach and Unhallowed Grave. Icereach will take players to venture a strange isle across the Sea of Ghosts, expect to face the Icereach Coven, ruthless witches, and face terrible storms. This dungeon is full of Atronax and frosty beings who are not going to give a warm welcome. Finally, face the Witch Coven themselves and take them down. Unhallowed Grave is by far one of my favourites for the DLC due to its grappling mechanics. Grappling was introduced with Elsweyr and has been added to this dungeon, making you feel like a true explorer investigating the mysterious depths of the Unhallowed Grave. Teamwork will be your friend, as there are some mechanics where players will need to grapple to higher points to activate sigils and coordinate with their group dungeon. There are also boss fights where movement to other areas will need you to grapple your way there. Once you get the mechanics down, it's a great dungeon to leap your way through. This one gets a 9 out of 10. Harrowstorm is a dungeon-only DLC, and therefore its value is dependent on whether you enjoy challenging dungeons and whether you want the unique sets they drop. In this case, the sets can be very useful depending on your build, and new sets have been added to Cyrodiil that PvP players can make good use of. Which DLC will you be trying next? Do you have a favourite? Let us know in the comments below. Eager to find out what's next for Elder Scrolls Online? Check out our Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor gameplay preview and changes for all the exciting new features coming with the Dark Heart of Skyrim chapter.